Clannad are an Irish band formed in 1970 in Gweedore, County Donegal. Their music has been variously described as bordering on folk and folk rock, traditional Irish, Celtic and New Age, often incorporating elements of an even broader spectrum of smooth jazz and Gregorian chant. After 12 years of success in the folk music industry, they shot to international recognition in 1982 with the release of the theme from Harry's Game, becoming the most successful band in the Celtic music genre. They subsequently went on to bridge the gap between traditional Celtic music and pop music in the 1980s and 1990s with albums such as Macalla and Anam. Their records usually consist of traditional Gaelic ballads, New Age tracks that carry the group's trademark of haunting vocal harmonies, mellow harp-based instrumentals and often upbeat pop-flavoured numbers. During their career they toured the world extensively and gained fans in every major territory. They have recorded in 6 different languages, most notably in Irish, and their record sales have exceeded the 15 million mark. They are also widely regarded as the band which, for the first time, put Irish traditional music and the Irish language on the world stage and paved the way for many other Irish artists. They have won several notable awards throughout their career, including a Grammy, a BAFTA, an Ivor Novello and a Billboard Music Award. Clannad are a family band composed of siblings Moya Brennan, Ciara N. Brennan, Pascal Cubed L. Brennan and their twin uncles Noel Duggan and Padraig Duggan. Their sister niece Enya left the group in 1981 to pursue a solo career. 10 years after taking a break, the 5 original members of Clannad reunited on stage at the Celtic Connections Festival in February 2007 in Glasgow, Scotland. Moya, Ciara N., Noel and Padraig embarked on their first UK tour in over 10 years in March 2008, starting in Gateshead. In September 2013, Clannad released Nada, their first studio album in 15 years. Early years = musical upbringing = siblings Ciara N., Pascal Cubed L., and Maia Brainer and their 2 twin uncles Noel and Padraig Duggan grew up in Gweedore, a rural village in County Donegal, in the northwest corner of Ireland. The village is in the Gaelic and they were an Irish-speaking and Roman Catholic family. The Brennans' mother, Baba, was a music teacher, and their father, Leo, was a former member of a cabaret band. Leo was travelling extensively in the early family years. Later, they bought a pub with a stage called Leo's Tavern. The children would occasionally do cover versions of the Beatles, Beach Boys and Joni Mitchell songs at home and in their family pub. The children were performing late at night in the pub when the local police sergeant walked in. They feared a summons, but instead the policeman had a form to enter a local music competition. They did not have a name at the time, but had to find one for the competition. Someone suggested Clannad de Paw, which was provisionally blended into Clannad in 1973. The young Brennans and Duggans' passion for the traditional music of Ireland soon expanded beyond their native Gweedore. They would later visit such outlying communities as Tory Island off Donegal's coast. Armed with some 500 Gaelic songs, they would later begin to arrange these songs for a full band. Traditional years Clannad entered a local folk festival in Letterkenny, County Donegal, and won first prize, a record contract with the Irish arm of Philips, when they were still in college and school. They did not make the record until 1973 because the record company did not like the idea of them doing half the album in Irish, as it was not heard of to sing Irish in mainstream music. The first album was recorded in 1973, was simply called Clannad, and it showed a band aware of contemporary Irish music of the day. There were hints of modern influences, most notably pentangles, in songs such as The Pretty Maid, and Morning Dew. However, it was the Irish songs, in particular an early arrangement of Na Elzar copyright Ina La, that really showed the band's ability to form contemporary, jazz-influenced versions of traditional material. This album was also released under the name The Pretty Maid. One of the tracks, Unfair Work, was performed by Clannad in the 1973 Irish heat of the Eurovision Song Contest. The second album followed in 1975 on Gaelic Records and was titled Clannad 2. produced by Planxty and Bothy band founder Dar Cubed Nowl Lunny, it showed a tremendously more mature band that was quite committed to singing mainly in Irish. Their arrangements were still experimental for the times, but their increasing skill in the use of traditional acoustic instruments kept the music well within the boundaries of folk music. Clannad too featured some groundbreaking traditional music, including Macaela's harp playing on the O'Carolan song Eleanor Plunkett, and ensemble work on songs like Rince Briota Nach, and Tidhir Ap Hail Ria, an Irish matchmaking song. The following year they produced Dar Lama N. The title track was a song about two Dar Lama N, or seaweed merchants, one of whom is trying to win the hand of the other's beautiful daughter. It has been a favourite of Clannad's live shows for a very long time and is still performed in a rock version which captures the flavour of the original recorded acoustic version. The band in 1976 still consisted of Macaela on lead vocals and harp, Ciara N on double bass, electric piano and vocals, Pascal Cubed L on flutes, guitars and bongos, Noel on guitar, vocals and Padraig on mandolin, guitar and vocals. They still kept the Gaelic spelling of their surnames of O'Brien for the brothers, Na Brena for Macaela and Adaga for Padraig and Noel. During their first tour of Europe in 1976, a standing ovation after an 8-minute version of Na Elzar copyright Enla convinced them to become full-time professionals. Clannad in Concert was released in 1979, featuring excerpts from their 1978 Swiss tour and a now world-famous version of Down by the Sally Gardens, and a 10-minute version of Na Elzar copyright Enla. It served as a base for various solos by the individual members. The year 1979 also saw a 36-concert North American tour, the most extensive ever undertaken by an Irish group to that date. The band's next album was Cranashll, released in 1980 on Tara Music. It featured a stronger emphasis on Macaela's harp playing. Arapailnachumdom featured a particularly full band arrangement reflective of their live jams at the time. La Quimfach Fawnd Tuoth showed the first hints of the more atmospheric side of the band's arrangements. On Gathering Mushrooms they included their sister Eith Na Brena on supporting vocals. In 1981 with the album Fiarm also on the Tara Music, recorded in Dublin's famed Windmill Studios, Clannad began to experiment with a more lush and electric sound. Enya became, for a short time, a full member of the band, adding keyboards and harmony vocals as well as lead vocals on 2 songs, and Tashll, and Bla Riad and Fair Cubed Star. This album marked Clannad's first experiments with synthesizer. It also had guest Neil Buckley on clarinet and saxophones plus a percussionist and electric piano. The following year Enya left to pursue her solo career and the band was about to record the album which would forever change their career as well as their sound, Magical Ring, which appeared in 1982. Chart success. 1980s, Harry's Game, Robin of Sherwood, Bono and Film. Clannad was signed up to RCA Records when they were approached and asked if they would be interested in doing a song for Harry's Game, a fictional British television miniseries drama depicting the Troubles in Northern Ireland. Ciara N., Pascal Cubed L and Macaela got together and wrote the now legendary song theme from Harry's Game. Peaking at number 5 in the British charts, it remains the only hit single in the UK ever to be sung entirely in Irish Gaelic, and was also broadcast by rock group U2 at the end of every concert during their 1983 war tour through the first round of the Joshua Tree Tour in 1987. The album Magical Ring, featuring this song, marked a major turning point as the start of their international career. The album contains half traditional material and half original recordings and was on the UK album charts for over 6 months. This earned the group their first Gold Record Award, and features some of Clannad's most enduring original compositions from the time, such as Tower Hill, Passing Time, and New Grange. In its impact of achieving a fusion of traditional folk, modern rock and world music, for its utopian vision of man in harmony with nature, Magical Ring is often compared with Alan Stivell's Renaissance of the Celtic harp. Shortly after Magical Ring, Clannad were commissioned to provide music for the 26-episode TV drama series Robin of Sherwood. They once again began to stretch themselves, creating music for a range of characters and events. For the first time ever, they produced an album without any of their native Irish, as the story was set deep in English folklore. The original soundtrack Legend was released in 1984 and won the band a BAFTA award for Best Original Television Music, the first time an Irish act had been honoured thus. The musical style of the album was dominated by guitar riffs and trumpet reverberations. It was primarily this album that firmly elevated the group to household name status, with their music being broadcast into millions of homes every Saturday night for 26 weeks. While not all of the show's music is found on the Legend album, some additional pieces can be found on Clannad's albums Macaela and Clannad, Live in Concert, 1996. In November 2003, Clannad revealed on their official website that there were several other pieces of music recorded for the third series of Robin of Sherwood that were not included on the Legend album. Unfortunately, no one has been able to locate the master tapes of this music. The search is continuing and hopefully one day these recordings will be able to be released. Macaela was released in 1985, and was Clannad's next proper album. It contained all original material except one traditional song and yielded the group a hit single in a lifetime, a duet with U2's Bono. The album featured the core quintet plus a large number of backing musicians who have continued to tour with them, including ex-King Crimson saxophonist Mel Collins, Moving Hearts guitarist Anton Drennan and drummer Paul Moran. Also on board was producer Steve Nye, whose previous charges included the Penguin Cafe Copyright Orchestra and David Sylvian. The album opens with the song Saisli Na. In Bwajail Na Permiline they covered a traditional Irish song from their native Donegal. It was the first time ever such a song featured on a chart-topping commercial album, something Clannad went on to pioneer in. When Macaela was released, the listening public began to be more accepting of the mainstream material that appeared heavily on the record. Songs such as the pop-flavoured Closer to Your Heart, and the powerful ballad Almost Seems were successful singles for the quintet. The latter even served as the official Children in Need single for 1985. The following album, Sirius, was released by RCA in 1988 and was recorded in Los Angeles with rock producers Gregorian and Russ Kunkel. The album included a duet with Bruce Hornsby and guest appearances by Steve Perry and J.D. Souther. The title track was Pascal Cubed L. Brennan's encouraging call to the environmental movement, and to the Greenpeace ship of the same name. Something to Believe in featured the voice and keyboards of Bruce Hornsby. Completed with the help of some of the biggest names on the Californian rock scene, Sirius was another different creation, just like their previous three albums. Received with critical apprehension, Sirius was initially, stoutly defended by the band as a change, but since then members have expressed their disappointment with the album and even Pascal Cubed L. Brennan apologized on its behalf. The following year they embarked on their first world tour. Between 1988 and 1991 there were some side projects for the band, including Atlantic Realm and The Angel and the Soldier Boy. Atlantic Realm was a small album made for a BBC documentary about the Atlantic Ocean. The recording was mainly instrumental as their voices as instruments. The Angel and the Soldier Boy was a half-a-hour animation without voiceovers, with the music telling the story. Both albums proved to be a minor success, and also demonstrated once again that Clannad were one of the most acclaimed soundtrack artists in the music industry. Two greatest hits albums were released at around this time, Past Present RCA, which to date is the only greatest hits compilation so far by the band to include any new tracks, The Hunter, and World of Difference. This album also included tracks from Magical Ring, Macaela, and Sirius. The collection K-Tel, re-released in 1996 under the label Celtic Collections series. Unlike Past Present however, it also included 5 earlier tracks from their more traditional Irish period. Pascal Cubed L. Brennan initially left the group to pursue a solo career and work with the WOMAD organisation in Britain. He released a trio album in 1993 with Gweedore and Joji Hirota under the new name Tra San. The true reason for Pascal Cubed L's departure is unknown. Being a family band, very little information is released about personal and professional relations about and between the members. Pascal Cubedel rejoined the band in January 2011, when Clannad performed at Temple Bar Trad Fest. Initially a single concert, it was extended with an extra 2 nights. 1990s, return to roots. The band continued on as a quartet and recorded 1991's Anam. It marked a return to the Clannad sound of such albums as Magical Ring and Feuament was recorded in 2.5 months at the band's home studio in the hills of Dublin. On Pascal Cubedel's leaving, the rest of the group began sharpening their songwriting skills with Saoire N, already the main source of their original music. The title Anam means soul in Irish and the album had 10 songs. The album was finally released in the USA in 1992 with a different cover and the addition of the previously released Bono duet In a Lifetime. Also included was Theme from Harry's Game, which had been included in the motion picture Patriot Games. The song was also used in a Volkswagen television advertisement, which helped establish the band's reputation in the USA. The song went on to win the Billboard Music Award for World Music Song of the Year. They dedicated the opening song Rana Cruin to the One World One Voice charity project. In 1991, a duet between the band and Paul Young, Both Sides Now, was released. The track had been put together for the Blake Edwards film Switch, featuring Ellen Barkin. In the storyline, a nasty male chauvinist is reincarnated as an attractive female. The use of the Joni Mitchell song was therefore suitable and proved a hit for the group. Released in 1994, Banba became Clannad's 13th studio album and received rave reviews and the band's first Grammy nomination. The album jogged comfortably to the #1 spot in the world music chart. Banba is a romantic mythical name for Ireland. In the track I Will Find You, written especially for the film The Last of the Mohicans, Macaela sings in English, Mohican and Cherokee. Once again all the songs were written and produced by Saoire N. Brennan, except Sunset Dreams, written by Noel Duggan. Moya Brennan described the album as a fusion of various styles of music, growing out of a traditional Gaelic root. Banba has been described as one of Clannad's most visual albums, and has sold over 1 million copies to date. The album lore gave some thought to the Native American Indians. On Trail of Tears, when Noel Duggan imagines how it felt to be exiled from one's ancestral land, he was also thinking about these people and their connection with the Irish. It opens with Croa Cra Cubed Gar, which was written as a theme tune for the Mel Gibson film Braveheart which, for unknown reasons, never made it onto the soundtrack. Lore features American drummer Vinnie Colaiuta and Mel Collins. It contained a strong jazz element, with songs such as Cianches blending contemporary sounds with traditional Irish music and the Irish language. Clannad toured Europe, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand in 1996 to promote the Lore album, but due to apparent disagreements with Atlantic Records, plans to tour the USA were scrapped. In 1996, they received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Irish recording industry. After 25 years of recording groundbreaking music, Clannad returned in 1997 with another album, Landmarks. In the Song of This Land, Macaela sings about Ireland, of its past and of its future. The track Fada Cubed demonstrates the influences of old Celtic history on Clannad's music. It became one of the most celebrated Irish albums in history and in 1999, it won the group a Grammy Award for Best New Age Album. In 1999, the group composed the song, What Will I Do for the Kevin Costner film, Message in a Bottle. 2000 Euro present, returned to stage. After Landmarks, Clannad ceased to make any more studio albums, but had promised to return in the near future. In 2003, they released the Best of album, The Best of Clannad, in a Lifetime, which is one of their biggest-selling albums to date. In 2005 the two Duggan twins, Noel and Padraig, as the musical duo The Duggans, got together for the first time outside of Clannad and recorded the album Rubicon. During the 2006 solo tour of Moya Brennan in the Netherlands, the concert in De Delen, Rotterdam, was dedicated to Leo and Barbara Brennan. The whole of Clannad, including former member Pascal Cubedel and sister Deirdre, performed 5 songs during the second half. The audience, Leo and Barbara, were unaware of the plan to bring Clannad on stage, which resulted in multiple standing ovations from the audience. The 5 original members of Clannad appeared on stage together at the Celtic Connections Festival in Glasgow on January 19, 2007. The concert was greeted by 2,000 fans who travelled from places such as the USA and Brazil to see the legendary group perform some of the most loved songs in their history. While at the Meteor Island Music Awards that were held in Dublin on February 1, 2007, Clannad were presented with the coveted Lifetime Achievement Award. In March 2008, Clannad began their first UK tour in over 12 years, starting at the Sage in Gateshead. The tour culminated in a dozen dates, including concerts in Ireland and Thailand. In May 2008, Clannad's version of the traditional song Down by the Sally Gardens was featured in the listening paper for music GCSE from the Oxford, Cambridge and RSA Examinations Exam Board. On August 25, 2008, Clannad released a new compilation album of their early music to contrast the music of their previous compilation album at the beginning of 2008, Beginnings, the best of the early years. In June 2009, Clannad was nominated for an IMA award in the category Best Revival Act, along with other revived bands Planxty, Moving Hearts, Arcady and Stockton's Wing. In January 2011, Clannad's concert at Christ Church Cathedral Temple Bar Tradfest in Dublin was extended by 2 nights due to fast ticket sales. The group appeared on RTA Pamela's The Late Late Show on January 21, 2011, performing the theme from Harry's Game with choral group Alina. It was their first appearance on the show in 14 years. 2013 A Europresent, returned to recording. On June 18, 2013, Clannad announced that their brand new studio album Now Da was to be released worldwide in September 2013. An international tour commenced in October 2013, starting in Australia and New Zealand. Musical style and legacy. When Clannad first started out in the early 1970s, their music and sound stemmed solely from their traditional background. Despite this, they managed to popularise such old songs as Da Lama N, Tid Hir Ap Hail Ria, and Coin Leach Glas and Fha Cube Mhair, and these songs have remained popular numbers at their concerts. On the departure from their folk and traditional background in 1982, they created a new sound that would define the meaning of New Age and Celtic music forever. When Theme from Harry's Game and Newgrange were first heard, radio stations all over the world became fascinated by the earthly and spiritual sound that they had never encountered before. One critic said the tunes were seeped in the old ways, but the production and the arrangement was fresh and inventive. This transition in Clannad's career is often seen as the birth of Celtic music, and to this day they are regarded as the pioneers of that genre. They are also noted for their melodious harmonies, which have been at the heart of their music since their first album. Legend was based on English folklore. With later albums, Clannad delved further into the realms of electronica and even pop. Due to this, many of their singles entered pop charts all over the world, and widened their fan base once again. Despite their success with this genre of music, the group managed to maintain a link with their Gaelic roots throughout their career, giving traditional Irish songs such as Tra Thna Cube Na Bí Gara Copywriter, and Bwajail Ana Permaline the Clannad treatment. Even though the rock-infused Sirius and the pop-inclined Macaela were successful for Clannad, it was their breakthrough style that they created themselves that has left the greatest legacy. Clannad's influence can be found in the film Titanic, where James Horner admitted to basing the soundtrack on Clannad's style. The soundtrack was so like Clannad's work that it has been incorrectly credited to them for many years. Clannad's Celtic mysticism is a recurring theme in the film Intermission. The otherworldly and ethereal Clannad sound comes from the ancient hills and glens that surround Gweedore, according to lead singer Moya Brennan. Traces of Clannad's legacy can be heard in the music of many artists, including Enya, Alton, Capercaillie, The Cause, Lauriana McKennitt, Arna Na, River Dance, RLA Fallon and even U2. Bono stated that Moya has one of the greatest voices the human ear has ever experienced. Private lives. Band members. The private life of lead member Moya was detailed in her autobiography in 2000. In it, Brennan recalls her upbringing as the eldest of 9 siblings in rural County Donegal, Ireland. Along with the highs of success in the music business, she also recounts low periods where alcohol, drugs and an abortion made her re-evaluate her life. She emerged from dark years as a committed Christian with rekindled faith. She remarried in 1991 and now resides in Dublin with her husband, photographer Tim Jarvis, and children, Aisling and Paul. The Brennan family. The Brennans are Ireland's most successful music family, with combined sales of over 90 million records. Macaela Duggan and Leo Brennan are the parents of the Brennan siblings Macaela, Leon, Ciara N, Deirdre, Pascal Cubdell, Olive, Ethan, Bartley, and Brada N. Barbara was the local school's music teacher and Leo led the celebrated Slieve Foy Show band. The catalyst that would propel the entire family onto the stage was the opening of Leo's Tavern in 1968 in Manorlick, Company, Donegal. This pub has become a musical mecca over the years, and Bono and Paul Brady have even been known to join in the regular jamming sessions. The other 6 children can all sing and play one or more instruments. Olive and Deirdre have sung on Moya's solo albums, and Brada N, who for years toured with Clannad as a backing vocalist, has released a solo record, Eyes of Innocence. Macaela Barbara Duggan is currently the lead member of the local Catholic choir, Ca Cubdum Her Doia Biaga, but no longer continues to teach in the local community school Pobalscoil Orthdop. The choir is frequently joined by Leo Brennan and the Brennan siblings. Leo helps his son Bartley to run the family pub, Leo's Tavern, and still takes to the stage equipped with his accordion and mic. Current members, Moya Brennan vocals, harp, Ciara N. Brennan bass, guitar, keyboards, mandolin, vocals, Noel Duggan guitar, vocals, Padre Duggan guitar, mandola, mandolin, vocals, Pascal Cubdell Brennan flute, guitar, percussion, whistles, vocals. Former members, Enya Brennan percussion, keyboards, vocals. Discography. Studio albums 1973, Clannad, 1975, Clannad 2, 1976, Dalama N, 1980, Cranay SHLL, 1981, Fuame, 1983, Magical Ring, 1984, Legend, 1985, Macaela, 1987, Sirius, 1989, Atlantic Realm, 1989, The Angel and the Soldier Boy, 1990, Anam, 1993, Banba, 1996, Law, 1997, Landmarks, 2013, Nada R. Live albums 1979, Clannad in Concert, 2005, Clannad Live in Concert, 2012, Clannad Christchurch Cathedral. Videography, 1989 Past Present, 2012 Clannad, Christchurch Cathedral. Bibliography, 1989, Past Present, Sheet Music Book for Past Present, 1991, A Woman's Voice, Eddie Rowley in Conversation with Macaela Brennan, 2000, Ireland Landscapes of God's Peace, Macaela Brennan, sometimes called God of Peace, 2001, The Other Side of the Rainbow Massachusetts Macaela Brennan with Angela Little, later subtitled, The Autobiography of the Voice of Clannad, 2008, Moments in a Lifetime, Noel Duggan, detailing Clannad's journey as a band. Notable awards. 1982, 1982 Ivor Novello Awards, Best Soundtrack for Theme from Harry's Game, 1984, 1984 BAFTA Awards, Best Television Music for Robin of Sherwood, 1992, Billboard Music Award, World Music Song of the Year for Rana Crane, 1999, Grammy Awards of 1999, Best New Age Album for Landmarks, 2007, Meteor Music Awards, Lifetime Achievement Award, 2014, BBC Radio 2 Folk Awards, Lifetime Achievement Award. Nominated 1982, 1982 BAFTA Awards, Best Television Music for Harry's Game, 1994, Grammy Awards of 1994, Best New Age Album for Banba, 1996, Grammy Awards of 1996, Best New Age Album for Law, 2009, Ireland's Music Awards, Best Revival Act. References. External links, official Clannad website.